Welcome to the Social Hotelier podcast with me, Sam-Erik Ruttmann. What if the key to a better world isn't proving we're right, but embracing diverse perspectives? My guest today is Morgan DeNicola, Executive Director of the DeNicola Family Foundation. She's a passionate advocate for cultural diplomacy, global health, and a humanitarian impact. As a driving force behind the foundation, she is dedicated to advancing world health, cultural diplomacy, humanitarian recognition, and conservation, all rooted in the belief that caring is an action, not just an emotion. Working alongside global leaders and the United Nations, Morgan challenges us to move beyond reaction and truly listen. Get ready for an insightful conversation with Morgan that might just change the way you see the world. So welcome to the show, Morgan. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and, help give people a little bit of an insight in a slightly different way of looking at the world.
Yeah, wonderful. So first, I think for our audience to get some background, can you share the story behind DeNicola Family Foundation and what inspired its mission and how does it extend the legacy of Cosmo DeNicola companies?
Absolutely. So my family, especially my dad, Cosmo, we are serial entrepreneurs. So we've owned businesses in talent management, software, healthcare, kind of all over the place, and always looking for good opportunities in business. And from there, I worked with them in the Cosmo DeNicola companies, mostly doing marketing, trying to promote what we were doing in all the different businesses. And from there, I was invited to actually go to Africa with a few people that he knew to see an orphanage. And in the process of being there and seeing how these children are impacted, seeing a different place in the world, I came back completely changed and said to myself, I don't think that I'm meant to be in marketing. I think that we are so blessed in our businesses, in all of the ventures that we've set out to, that it's now time for us to start giving back. And in having this conversation with Cosmo and my mom, Janet, he said the same thing. He's like, you are correct. We have been so successful in the things that we've done. Let's start a little charity. So it started out as Cosmo Cares, very small charity that was doing small outreach programs in the city of Philadelphia. And then from there, we gained a lot of traction in the way we thought and the efforts that we were putting out. We decided to sell a few of our companies and then form the DeNicola Family Foundation, which is much larger and has a global impact. So I run our family foundation, but I work very closely with my parents and my entire family since we represent the entirety of our family.
Wonderful. So how do you prioritize your four core humanitarian passions? You have world health, cultural diplomacy, humanitarian recognition, and conservation in today's global landscape?
Well, those seem to be the four things that are very intertwined in our family. So we've had a lot of health issues, mental, physically, emotionally, that we've realized everyone in the world has a right and a need for access to healthcare and clean water, clean food. So global health is at the forefront of everything that we've really done, especially working in the healthcare industry and having one of our own businesses. We see the impact locally and globally on health. So that became something very important and close to our family. Then we had conservation, because what is health without our environment also being healthy? It's very important to have access to good food, clean water. So conservation just kind of walks hand in hand with global health. And then through that, especially if you're global, then you need cultural diplomacy. You need to have that understanding that everywhere in the world is different. Everyone views things differently, approaches things differently, and you need to have these in-depth but open conversations in order to help one another. And then we also realized there are so many people in this world that are doing incredible things that sometimes need a little recognition, to need to be put at the forefront. Like, they are doing incredible things, but you never really hear about it. We have a tendency, especially here in the United States, hearing all the bad. And we don't hear so much about the large groups of people that are out there doing these incredible things. So we thought it's very important for us all to start acknowledging, encouraging, and helping these people that are on the front lines of these issues. So those became very close to our family, those 4 pillars, and also tie into a lot of our companies. So we decided to kind of keep it within those 4, and also start to build our networks around those 4 to try to start connecting one another to help each other in those 4 pillars, with those 4 passions and pillars.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit now about some examples of the particular projects? You mentioned Cosmo Cares was something how you started, but what else are you doing in terms of maybe on the international scale that people can get an understanding of your initiatives and how you go about it?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do is we have a mobile medical van right now outside of Malawi, and it brings basic medical care to these villagers that actually are associated to that orphanage that I originally visited, that started our venture. And it was a way to bring very basic healthcare and basic needs to these villagers, so they understood that these children weren't being taken out of their villages and, put in this orphanage, but there was this community. So that's one of the big things we're doing right now, actually, in Lesotho, Africa. But we work closely with the Humpty Dumpty Institute. I sit as vice chair. And what they do is a lot of the cultural global efforts. So right now we have some film students from I believe Russia, but there are journalists that are coming over here to learn about journalism and the importance of transparency. And it's also to help alleviate some of those misconceptions of culture. So we have preconceived notions of journalism in Russia, as well as they have some preconceived notions of us as Americans. So we've also done film programs with Iraq and Iran's film students coming over. They go back and record and then bring their films back to the United States. So we do a lot with the arts, film, we've done music, we've also done food, but our big thing is we like to take members of Congress and their staffers to different embassies around the world to see the different challenges that we're having on a global scale. So these are United States embassies, but they're in these other countries, so we can have an understanding of what the United States embassies are also dealing with on foreign land, and vice versa. Okay. So I like to say that we're continuing the education, because it's very hard to read about issues that are going on globally and not being there and not really seeing it. That goes back to the caring, it's more than an emotion, it's an action. It's one thing to feel a certain way about what's going on globally. It's another thing to see it and know the next steps to kind of help or resolve issues that might come back to the United States or in other parts of the world. How to see it, prevent it, or help.
Yeah. So, it's fantastic work. And I have to admit that I'm not familiar with the Humpty Dumpty Institute. So could you help me to understand what that is all about? And that will also help the audience who is listening
yes.
about this.
So they are an NGO that works with the United Nations, member of Congress, the Senate, and embassies globally. So they facilitate a lot of dialogues. They bring a lot of, like I said, the art programs globally, but they started out actually decommissioning mines around the world from war-torn countries, and also teaching different cultures farming techniques, how to feed, how to educate. So it really depends on the place in the world and what is being asked, because a lot of these places around the world, they have very specific needs, and they write in saying, this is what we need, who can help us do this? So HDI, Humpty Dumpty Institute, looks at these grant opportunities and tries to see the ones that we can help right away, and that we've done similar programs that have been beneficial and very well received. We always take, the input of either the other country or the participants that have done it and continue to evolve and kind of master different ways to work with our own government, local communities, global communities, and foreign government.
Okay. I'm just because there's such a broad spectrum that you're doing. I'm just wondering, how do you decide where to focus your efforts on? Okay, maybe you mentioned Humpty Dumpty Institute is one part, but is there any other part that will help you then to say, okay, this is what we're going to be working on this year, or this is a 5-year plan for something?
Yes. So it really is the need. So we listen to the community. We get emails on a regular basis. This is what we're looking for. And we see what kind of impact we can have, and the sustainability. Sustainability is a very big thing with our network and our family, because there's you turn any corner, there's a need. There's need everywhere. It's about the programs that you can create that will have a positive impact, but also if you step away from it, you can put people in the right place to make sure it can continue to exist, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to build a school, but then you leave the school and there's nothing left for it to continue. There's no other funds or people that are willing to take it over and run it. So what we do is we have a very, great network locally and globally of philanthropists, humanitarians that are all interconnected. And we all kind of will contact one another and say, this is what we're seeing a lot of. We're seeing a lot of food insecurity. Okay, who do we know? Where is this the most impacted? Where can we have the best opportunity to set something up that will be well received culturally and continue to thrive with boots on the ground that we can step away from? So we can put somebody else in charge of it, because we can't be, as much as I would love to be everywhere all at once, it's not really possible. So you need to make sure that you have people that have a similar vision, but obviously difference of opinions are wonderful. You can't always surround yourself with people who think the same, or you won't see issues. So you surround yourself with people who view things differently, but you have that trust that the main mission will continue to go on. So it's really the need and the individuals who are willing to continue to help you.
Yeah. How do you go about vetting a project? I'm sure you are bombarded by requests, and there is always must be some sort of a due diligence that you need to go through. Is it through your networks you have internationally, or how do you? Just to get understanding of your approach to going ahead with a certain project.
It's both. It's our network, but also our own personal due diligence. Yeah. So if there's somebody that I hope to work with, I pretty much live on the computer, see everything that I can find out about that individual, things that they've accomplished, things that have been successful, things that haven't been so successful, because we've all, swung for the fences and maybe missed here and there. And after I do my due diligence, I will reach out to people they know or people that I know that know them, and then kind of be like, how do we feel? Is this something that would work? What could be potential downfalls? What could be potential successes? And that's continuing to grow that network. You have a group of people that will be like, no, this person's a rock star. Oh, this is wonderful. Let's bring them in. Let's bring them on board. And you just continue to grow with people who have that passion to just help one another and thinking outside of the box or viewing things differently. So you just kind of continue to grow that if you see that there's somebody out there that you're like, this person's doing this phenomenal. Let me help them. Let's continue to elevate one another.
Right. Very good. Yeah, so your foundation is an extension of Cosmo DeNicola's companies, which has a diverse business portfolio, as you mentioned. How does this corporate legacy shape your approach to philanthropy?
It's very interesting because when I first got into the philanthropic world, I never thought of it, the parallels to business, but it is incredible. A successful charity or foundation or any real philanthropic endeavor, it needs to be run very similar to a business. And I think that that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people to realize, because you think charity, you think some people think throwing around money, and it needs to be, you need to have that forethought of, okay, this is our mission. This is going to be our overhead. This is the amount of money that we have allocated for it. What are the issues that we might see? It's run very similar.
Okay.
So the business is having that business background helps you day to day to see things that might be issues, to see where, you might not have the proper tools or the proper staffing, or also where you might be spending a little bit more money than you need to. So having a lot of kind of that merger of charity, philanthropy, and business is so important to make sure that you have continued success.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, that parallel. So you worked with the global organizations like United Nations and various NGOs. What have been some of the biggest challenges in driving meaningful impact on an international scale?
Misconceptions. I think that a lot of the issues are, we will hear of a program and half of the population will say, well, that's not a necessity. But we view things through the lens of how we live our life. So a lot of the times that's the problem, is we have these preconceived notions or visions because we are viewing it through however we live our life. And it's so important to kind of turn that off. You have to turn that off. I can't tell you how many times we've gone to different countries and thought it was going to be one way and it was completely different. As well as preconceived notions of needs or wants, or we project our own cultural norms. It is just really imperative that everybody going kind of pockets that and pockets our own wants and needs and realizes that it's not so much about us. We need to be a clean slate and a place where people are so comfortable showing you who they are and what they need without judgment. And I think sometimes that's very difficult for people because our initial reaction is, we go to react rather than respond. Yeah. And we don't take those extra 30 seconds to really listen. And I think listening's way beyond just what our ears do. It's what our brain also does and how we are perceived. So I know, especially as Americans, we have a tendency, if I get respect, I give respect. And it has to be the other way around. It has to be, I'm going to give you respect, because when you initially do that and respect those cultural differences and respect how people live their life, then the respect is reciprocated and you can see a little bit more the truth, because when people know that you respect them, they trust you. They trust you to see the real issues and the real problems.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. I mean, that goes, it's almost like a continuous learning experience, because when you're working internationally, you have the cultures are so different, and the understanding and developing that trust. I think that's, you really hit the nail on the head about developing that trust, that it's because you'll be tested continuously that you deserve their respect and deserve their trust. So I think I can imagine that is a continuous effort from anyone who's doing this valuable work that you're doing.
Absolutely. There is always that voice in the back of your head, like, oh, did you just disrespect? It happens, but you have to constantly be like, shh, you don't know what's going on. You need to be a person that is somebody that somebody wants to be around, or to tell you their most intimate moments of vulnerability. So it's so important to
Yeah.
really kind of leave that behind. It will be there when you're done. You can pick it right back up. But in the meantime, just really being a person that listens, understands, that compassion and that empathy, regardless of how you live your life.
Yeah.
One thing shouldn't really be a necessity in helping other people.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's such interesting and refreshing to hear that from anyone like you. Not only to hear it these days, because we are reading so much what's going on in the world, and there's more always, it's so polarized, and there's the blame factor always put, and you're actually putting in a very positive way of thinking, and where it can be of help where it's actually needed. So it's thank you for that. Cultural diplomacy is a key part of your mission in a world that often feels divided. What role do you see it playing in the bridging differences and fostering understanding?
I think that people forget that the ability to be diplomatic, the ability to really be welcoming and empathetic, is such a superpower of self, that we don't realize the benefit that you have in yourself and the ability to do this, because we really never know ourselves until we experience other things, until we experience all food. You can't say I don't like this if you've never tried it.
Yeah.
You won't really know yourself until you're a part of everything. And if you have that ability and that, I like to say, that lack of fear, like love is a lack of fear. And if you have that, you're going to learn so much about yourself and that self-control. We have a lot of issues with anxiety and depression. And I think a lot of it is because we don't really know ourselves, or we don't really love ourselves. And in order to do that, you have to just be a love. You have to listen to people. You have to accept people. You have to really kind of embrace the world, be a global citizen. And a lot of those fears and anxieties start to go away. The more difficult conversations you have, the more self-control you have,
Yeah.
the more understanding you have, the more compassion you have. So I like to tell people that it goes beyond politics. It goes beyond borders, and it's about the human aspect of knowing yourself, controlling yourself. And the only way you can do that is exposing yourself to everything and everyone. And you'll see a lot of that depression due to lack of connection goes away, or anxiety goes away, because you realize you can be in the room with anybody and still be a compassionate, empathetic, understanding, articulate individual that has self-control. So
Yeah.
I think it's just important in your day-to-day to be diplomatic, to be understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming from the hotel field, where I've been always serving guests, and so for the last, well, quite a long time. So I mean, that's one of the probably the best schools that I had about learning about diplomacy, because we're meeting people from all walks of life, and then you try to kind of understand the person by listening, yes, and then absorbing what they're saying, but also have your antennas out to see who they are, and what is their intentions, and not necessarily be very critical in the moment. Just start from a zero base, and then or 100%, and then you just kind of go from there. So I mean, yeah, I can understand this way of thinking that you have, and of course we live in a world right now where people feel isolated. They are just have their headphones on, and then they don't actually talk to anybody, and then they feel very lonely, and there's a lot of anxiety. So I think there's so much work to be done in this part.
Absolutely. I feel like it's we're continuing down this path of self-isolation because we have this idea of, oh, I can't talk to this person, or I can't be around this person because of this or that. And we kind of make these excuses of not engaging with one another because we don't have the control or the understanding, but also we then feel so isolated. And it's just really kind of a cyclical thing that we are doing as a society that really doesn't make much sense, because if we really listen to one another, our needs and our wants, no matter where you're at, are the same.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. From supporting conservation efforts to humanitarian recognition, your work spans in so many fields. Can you share some projects or initiatives that has had a particular and profound impact on you?
Yes, we have just started, and this is going to sound so silly, but I'm so excited about it. It's a Bright Star Award, and it's a community award, and we are going into grade schools all over, and we're acknowledging young individuals that are trying to have a positive impact on their communities at a very young age. So we're really trying to go into these schools and have these assemblies that recognize these children who are so pure and passionate about helping one another, to recognize them. And then we also give them little funding to them and their family to continue to contribute to their communities. And it may seem so small, but I am so thrilled to be doing it, because the encouraging of our youth to really kind of be rewarded for this way of thinking is super important. So I'm very excited about that. And we are also branching our other humanitarian awards out into the sciences. So different groups of people that are doing research or already having positive impacts, we are going to recognize, give an award to, and also give them compensation to continue their research or whatever impact they're having on their communities as well. We are also kind of back to my heritage. We are building a community center in the village that my grandfather grew up in.
Oh.
A lot of the residents are getting older, and we want to give them a place to go that has access to the internet and other programs, for them to just kind of be able to have a community center. So that's a really important thing near and dear to our hearts, and also kind of keeps us grounded to the needs of aging individuals, but also their needs are much different. The culture of the Italians is phenomenal. They don't really want your help, but they are wonderful. So that's another one of the global impacts that we are working on. But we have a few ideas that we're ironing out. We're not there yet, but 2025 will be very exciting, and we have a lot of ideas for 2026. So you'll probably see us all over the map in 2026.
Wonderful. Well, you know who to call if you need to get the message out. So I'm very happy to help you to also to forward the message to the audience who is listening to my podcast.
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
So philanthropy is often a long game, and requiring persistence and adaptability. How do you measure success, and what keeps you motivated to push forward?
It's hard to I guess put a ruler to success. I personally like to see it in the people. So if you can see the people happy and engaged, that's success. But it's hard because it is definitely a long run game. You don't see the impact in what you are doing in a year or even 2 years. It's normally 3, 4, 5 years down the road. So we like to kind of have check-in dates in each of our programs where you have to step away. It's like watching a pot boil, you can't just watch it every day. You have to kind of step away from it, trust the boots on the ground, we like to say, that are there. So you trust in your team, you take a step back and kind of go back in a year, go back in 2 years, and see the impact of the people. I think that is the most important moment, because philanthropy, charity, it's a very draining line of work. It can get very emotional. You see needs on a daily basis. Sometimes you have to say no. And you see people kind of on their worst day. And that can be very difficult. You can kind of feel defeated and say to yourself, well, I'm not really having an impact because there's still this need. And I like to say to everybody who's out there doing that and feeling that way is just look in the eyes of one person, because you may not change the world, but you can change the world for one person. And that is what you need to hang on to, is those very small moments when you yourself start to feel defeated. And just don't give up, because you don't know. That's the beauty of life, isn't it? You don't know what you can accomplish until you've tried it. You don't know what the next day is going to bring, or the next trial. So it's very important to hang on to those little steps, and just know that every day you're taking a step closer to making the world better for somebody.
That's wonderful. We read every day about some areas around the world that where people don't have clean water, or they have diseases and other sufferings. Are there any particular areas? You mentioned Africa already. Are there any other areas where you're looking at to provide help and support? Or is your focus Africa?
My focus right now is Africa, but we do have other programs on a larger scale. But Africa, I just have a lot of network. So I have made a lot of friends over the years that are there. So if there's programs that I want to do, they're there to run them and on the day to day. But we've done programs in China. There are a lot of good programs going on in China. There are a lot of really unique programs in Poland that are fascinating. I think eventually we would like to start doing some South America, but again, it's need, and whether or not the culture welcomes us and wants us. That's also a big thing. You never want to say, hey, I can help you with this. And then, certain cultures don't necessarily want your help. So it's a matter of just opening those dialogues, earning that trust, and seeing who really wants you there. I know we're about to do another program in Uzbekistan. So that should be very interesting. And I know we've done some boxing programs in Jamaica. I'm hoping to do more boxing programs. It teaches women around the world how to defend themselves. So that's another very interesting, and also a very interesting cultural avenue. But it really depends on who's welcoming and who's asking.
Sure. So in today's fast-paced world, many people want to make a difference, but do not know where to start. What advice would you give to someone looking to get involved in meaningful charitable work?
Know what your passion is first. Because again, seeing needs out there, it can get even watching the TV here in the United States, I was watching one channel and there was, I think 3 different causes that were asking for your 30-cent donation a day. And I was just like, oh my God. I think it's very important to know what it is you want to have an impact on specifically. So that way you don't spread yourself too thin.
Yeah.
And then once you know what it is you want to have an impact on, start locally. That's your best way to start building your network. See what other people are doing and learn from it. Learn how the things that you think they're doing right, learn the things that you think that they're doing wrong. And it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to write checks. Sometimes people need ideas. Sometimes people need volunteers. Get your hands dirty. It doesn't always have to be you donating money. Sometimes it's being an ear for somebody, a hug, a smile. Start very small, learn what's going on locally for you, and then branch out. See how you could take it to the next level. If you want to do it overseas, do your research on small groups overseas that are doing it. It doesn't have to be these large ones that you might feel that there's controversy over. Do your research on some of the smaller guys that can really use a hand. And then build your network, build your community, connect.
Very good. Now, looking ahead, what is your vision for the future of the DeNicola Family Foundation? Are there any upcoming initiatives or goals you're particularly excited about? You mentioned something already, but I thought I'd throw in the question anyway to see any other points you'd like to make.
I would like us to continue to build our network. And the only way we can do that is to have everybody reach out, to get our message out there and see who wants to be a part of our family. Family's global. So my goal is try to reach as many people as I can, be as welcoming as I can, and hear the needs of communities. And then from there, kind of, again, see who wants to become a part of our family and how we can really help one another. So it's starting out as outreach and involving as many people who want to be included and as involved. So that's for me personally. My family, my father is going all over the place, all over. I think he will be traveling to the Middle East to visit some hospitals to see what different hospitals are doing. I know there's one hospital, Sheba, that he has an interest in seeing what they're doing and how we can bring possibly advancements in medical care globally. So, I think our goal is just to continue to get word of mouth and as many people involved as possible.
Wonderful. Well, Morgan, this has been a very interesting, and I am so happy that you took the time to tell your story and also about the vision for the DeNicola Family Foundation and all the tremendous work that you're doing. So if people are interested to find out more about your activities, how can they find you and where should they go?
You can find me personally on Instagram and Facebook. My name's right there in the corner. Yeah. You can also find our family foundation, DeNicola Family Foundation, we have our own website, but we also are on social media. So please do not hesitate to just start a conversation, reach out. I run that, so you will be getting me. I'm a person. There's not a million strangers in between you and I would just love to start these conversations and see the needs.
Excellent, Morgan. I appreciate you as you joined today, and thanks for all the fantastic insight.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to The Social Hotelier. If you enjoy this episode, please take a moment to leave us a review, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you're listening through as a podcast, we'll be very happy if you give us a review, which you have to do on Apple Play through your mobile device. So we have an incredible lineup of guests coming your way. So stay tuned for more thought-provoking conversations. And until next time, take care and keep exploring.